Government
I
control
said, where
building.
am I? And they said, we can't tell you. And I said, why can't you tell me where I am? And they said, we're not supposed to tell anybody.
Looks like the police have formed a cordon to keep people from taking pictures.
We're taking things that are, genetically modified organisms, and we're injecting them in little kids' arms. We just shoot them right into the vein.
I've basically just been waiting to get the vaccine so that I can feel safe going out.
Things like that, which kind of suits my personality. I like it that way. Yeah.
And that's fair. Good evening, everyone. This is Last Week Today. It's a compilation of the best stories of the week from Freedom Forum News, the What's Up Canada website, and the Ethics Over Fear Task Group. Now, my partner in crime is Wayne Peters. And what's happening, Wayne?
Living the adventure. Every day is a new one. What can you say? It's just which playbook are we talking about today?
We are living in a universe where COVID doesn't matter unless you're an airline pilot and you're still going to get turfed on May 1st, or if you're a government employee, but Ukraine's more important otherwise.
We've completely become an Orwellian society at every level around the world, I think, at this point. And it doesn't really matter which direction you look and you try and talk about something. You are considered revolutionary at this point, and threats to the establishment, no less. And I believe it was Orwell said that in a world governed by deceit, attempting to speak the truth is a revolutionary crime. It's not 1934, not 1984. It's 2022.
Absolutely true. And we are going to attempt to speak truth, at least to our audience tonight. And that brings us to our first story. It's about our current Prime Minister, the fine young Justin Trudeau, who went to London to visit the Queen. However, and as noted in the March 8th, 2022 UK Express post, does Trudeau not care about Queen? Canadian PM shamed for preposterous move on UK trip. Our Prime Minister has sparked confusion and outrage after opting to wear a face mask when meeting Sir Keir Starmer, the UK opposition leader, but not while visiting the Queen of England. Now, he's in Europe this week, trying to get together with whoever will let him take a picture. And he went to visit the 95-year-old Queen, and this is her first public engagement since being diagnosed with COVID-19 several weeks ago. And frankly, she seems to have made a complete recovery. Now, Trudeau, like I said, he's trying to meet as many European leaders as possible during this visit, which was officially undertaken to show Canadian support for NATO against recent Russian actions against the Ukraine. However, unofficially, and as noted in the biting March 9th, 2022 National Post editorial from Terry Glavin under the title Trudeau Combats Russian Invasion of Ukraine with Operation Photo Op, many commentators in Europe are making fun of the Prime Minister's junket and noting that 260 military trainers stationed in the Ukraine up until 2 weeks ago have been moved out to Poland. Now, the Post noted that, to be fair, the Americans and the British also pulled their troops out of the Ukraine at around the same time. Now, Wayne, I couldn't help but notice that most stories containing negative assessments about the Trudeau trip, while they're widely available from European sources, were very difficult to find in Canada without using a virtual private network, a VPN, that's what I think they called them. Do you think we're being censored, Wayne?
Week by week by week, they never cease. This is the one thing that amazes me is how successful and how committed they are to censorship and to making sure that only the approved acceptable narrative is allowed anywhere in the digital sphere. These guys control the video game that they live in. Their reality is based in a foreign dimension, and anything outside of that must be removed from the sphere of information. And don't listen to that. There, here's your 2 minutes of hate, and it's just bizarre watching this shift in programming and the accompanying propaganda, with always directly right on cue the accompanying censorship and the accompanying fake replacement material. It's just wash, rinse, repeat. Wash, rinse, repeat. Unplug the COVID 8 track and plug in the Ukraine 8 track. And here we are in a photo op media war escalation that is completely misrepresentative of the actual reality of what is going on the ground, the reality of it all. And it's such a dangerous, slippery slope that these mannequins, meat puppets, sorry, did I say that? Are all beholden to exactly some of the things that we've been talking about. I saw this meme that said, no, not meaning to offend anybody, but it was 16 conspiracy theorists are up 16-0, in going into World War III, but yet people believe the media one more time. They're one more time. They're right about the Ukraine. They're telling the truth about Ukraine. And meanwhile, over there in Europe, the reality of it is he is getting laughed or taunted or chased out of every venue, having to use slithering in the back door like the weasel that he actually is, being mocked at every turn. One of their local or their premier news channels did a segment on him again just a couple of days ago, and they were quite surprised because this was the second time he had been nominated as Plank of the Week in the UK. And
so he's very popular.
He's very popular, for somebody that's looking for an idiot to point a finger at and laugh at. That's kind of the essence of it, and that's obviously not going to be allowed, here to take anything away from the war machine, the media war machine that the war hawks are desperately in need of. And the problem is these guys are way behind the 8 ball. Their video game is definitely not happening in real time. And the shining light of it all is the revolutionaries that are speaking the truth are this time with this media a psyop being waged against an innocent population. This time, the keyboard warriors and the fact truthers and the revolutionaries are not a year and a half behind. They are about a week and a half behind. So things are jacking up, I think, from the legacy perspective, but as fast as they put out their bunk, more people step up to the dissemination of the reality, and it's starting to get predictable, the smell, right?
I would argue that it's easier to cover a war because a war is at a distance, and most of the people don't see the war outside their windows, at least not in Canada.
Yeah, and part of the I think the pushback that's coming from that we're seeing here now about demanding the truth and looking at things is there was a long period of understanding and looking in questions about the American involvement in the Ukraine, things that have been going on in the Ukraine. We've been pursuing stories in the Ukraine for a couple of years now, so all of this stuff that they're trying to push here, there's already a foundation of truth that goes against this narrative already out there. And realistically, let's face it, folks, it's a whole lot easier to sit around the kitchen table and discuss the pros and cons of a war than it is about a pandemic, fake or real or otherwise, right? right? So this is, I think, what is really they've again misinterpreted what the people are hearing from what they are spewing is disconnected as per usual, and where that snowball of insanity stops, I don't know yet.
And that's a good segue into our second story for tonight. Now, this story originates from the March 6, 2022 Swiss Policy Research Post, Ukraine War, a Geostrategic Assessment. Now, I like this paper. It notes that while the Russian invasion of the Ukraine could be seen as the latest escalation of over 2 decades of geopolitical tension between the US, NATO, and Russia, it could also be seen as the first Russian military response to 2 decades of Eastern expansion of the NATO military alliance. I'm going to ask Ed to move back to the beginning of this post again, because right at the top, there's this really neat map outlining in red how much NATO has grown over the last 20 years. And I think that's perfectly legitimate for the Russians to be a little bit concerned. In 1990, Gorbachev was of the understanding that NATO would not seek to expand, and that's why he allowed the German nation to combine East and West Germany, going back into the one whole Germany, and I think it's particularly legitimate from the Russian perspective to say, hey, wait a minute, we've shrunk, you guys have expanded, we got to protect our territory. Now, you go, Wayne. Tell me what you think.
This has got me bouncing in my seat. Please, Ed, put that map back up there. This is stuff that we've been digging into for a long time. So when people take a look at the gold spot of Ukraine there, very on the very far right of it, in the bottom right hand corner, there's a little nub that sticks out a little bit. Those are the two that little small nub there is the actual territory in contention. That's where Putin went in. Those are where the two provinces that had requested his assistance to establish their sovereignty in opposition to what was happening in the greater Ukraine. This is where this is all starting from. And Putin had been very diligently, I believe, trying to navigate this to a point where without conflict, because literally of what's happening in this map. So this would be the equivalent of the United States allowing a hostile Russia to come and stand up a whole bunch of nuclear missiles in Iceland and Greenland and Newfoundland and Mexico and Cuba and every island in the Caribbean. This is the equivalent of what NATO has done over the last 30 years towards Russia. The deal was that there was supposed to be, I believe, 13 NATO nations. There is now 30. And when the Ukraine government, the corrupt Ukraine government, the government planted by Joe Biden and co., established this corrupt government in there, these guys are now seeking nuclear status in the Ukraine. This is where Putin, as a nation, as a nation leader, has absolutely nothing else he can actually do. So this is going to lead into some very different consequences, and I'm not even speaking about war. What's going to happen is we're going to get into a really deep financial crisis long before it turns into a static war, and people need to figure this out, that Putin's holding all the aces at this point. All of them. Every last one of them, guys. I mean, like, literally. If you want to stack 3 decks together, Putin has all 12 aces right now. And people need to see the reality of this and stop buying into the media narrative. I mean, sanctions are working because gas is $2.25 a liter here at 48 cents in Russia, right? This is really a punishment to the Russian people, these sanctions and stuff. Like, it's just a giant charade.
I would tend to agree that it's really difficult to figure out what's going on in there. I've noticed there's a lot of French networks that are live streaming right now. They've been saying for 2 or 3 days that the Russians are about to enter Kiev. It's particularly confusing. The Russian army possesses substantial Chinese and third world support, but the Ukrainian government, which seems to be supported by the U.S., Canada, and EU, at least during the photo opportunities, also seems to have on board actual real fascists, such as the anti-Soviet Azov Regiment, who trace their origins to World War II, anti-Soviet forces operating under Nazi control.
Real life Nazis, folks.
Real life Nazis.
We found them. They're not in the truckers' convoy in Ottawa. They're actually in the Ukraine, being funded by our government, supported and trained by the meat puppets we call.
There is a Twitter that I'm not going to put up right now, but there is a Twitter from CTV News apologizing. They were taking pictures of Ukrainian soldiers, and the Ukrainian soldiers were from the Azov regiment, and they had little Nazi swastikas on their uniform. So CTV had to apologize for that.
You know, and as laughable as this is because of the charade that it is, like, I mean, this is, folks, this is right, like literally a C-budget movie. Our government has, for a number of years now, been sending representatives over there to fund and negotiate and create relationships with those organizations over there. This literal Nazi battalion, the Ottawa Gazette, I mean, it even reported on this. There's other reports on this. This is not Putin. This is not a statement to say that I stand with Putin at all. I'm not going to say Putin's a good guy, but I will say is when I look at the globalists and what they're doing, Putin isn't nearly as evil as what the globalists are doing. And this is no longer East versus West, just like it's no longer left versus right. This is people are being slaughtered for all of the wrong reasons. And we need to be looking closer at the why and who is telling us what's to do here. When you have these meat puppet governments that are all captives of foreign operatives under the World Economic Forum control, as well as the NATO command group is also under World Economic Forum control, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out this, that the cheese doesn't smell right here. And regardless of what our personal opinion is of Putin, we need to be more aware of and concerned with what these guys are doing. They are destroying our economy, leveraging, pretending that Putin is the bad guy. And in the meantime, they do things. Or am I going to break the bubble on the next story? Are we going into the money part?
We're going to go into the money part in a second. Right now, we're going to rage about the media.
It's amazing, and you were mentioning earlier about the flood, of course, of stories coming out pretending that Russia's creating war crimes over there in the Ukraine. Well, when you look at actual sources of this information, Putin made it incredibly painful for anybody to disseminate false information out of Russia. He kicked out all of the quote unquote mainstream media companies. They were told that they would all go to jail or worse and face massive fines. They bailed out of Russia the very next day. So this stuff is obviously coming out of the Western Ukraine. Anything that is coming out, if it favors those narratives, when you get a chance to hear from people that are in the eastern part of the country, that are living through what's going on out there, it absolutely corroborates and establishes everything that we've been saying. This is the actual Ukrainian government in power is using the people as human shields because they need carnage to bring about the resources to bring in the United Nations and NATO and the resources from these corrupt governments and give them nukes right next to Putin's neighborhood. And meanwhile, they're just cleansing the population out there. And this is not news. There's Oliver Stone. I'm not really a huge fan, but he did something with guts, and he went over there twice and actually interviewed Putin and several of these politicians involved in all of this. And it's a very different perspective. Again, not putting Putin in the good guy seat, but here's the thing. Here's the overwhelming consensus. When these globalists say they're going to do something evil, take them at their word.
Yeah.
We really have to start believing this package that they put together in their World Economic Forum sheets and the UNSDA. It may sound all fluffy and fantasy like, and we think, oh, it's just a charade, it's just a pretty wrapper. No, they are genuine in believing this. You can take them at their word. They absolutely believe in population reduction, control through vaccination, and all of these things that have proven the conspiracy analysts correct. They are absolutely legitimate at their word when they're talking about this stuff. But here's the interesting part that people need to remember: take Putin at his word as well.
I would tend to agree 100%. I'm looking everywhere for the Oliver Stone movie from 2017. I noticed it's been pulled off YouTube. I think it's still available on Rumble. I just wish I knew the name of it because it was a really good piece.
Ukraine on Fire.
Yes, that's absolutely what it is. We'll also include it.
And he did he redid another follow up of it that just got released here in 2020, well into the pandemic, and this is where some of the beginning of what we're seeing now starts to get actually exposed in that on a completely different level than us speaking about this. This is directly from the horse's mouth. So when people get a chance to see some of these things, I highly recommend watching them.
I do as well. And finally tonight, we get into the money discussion. We note how cheap gasoline is in Russia. It's 43 cents a liter, according to your recent Instagram post, Wayne. Compared to what it is in Canada, I think you said it was $1.68. It might have been a little higher today. I did some driving with a friend, and we'll take some guesses as to why there's the difference in gas pricing. And why Putin may not be as dumb as everybody in the West and all the media seems to think he is. Now, for that, we reference the March 8th, 2022 Gold, Goats, and Guns alternative media post under the title Media, Iran, Venezuela, and the Two Great Resets, which is a compilation of previous work this website has done on the topic. And it notes, first off, that gas is cheap in Russia. Notes, secondly, that the rest of the world is trying to stabilize the price of gas. Notes, thirdly, that since being evicted from the Society for Worldwide Interbank Financial Telecommunications, the SWIFT things that brought the Visas and the MasterCard and the PayPals into Russia, they've all been cut off. But the Russian government has essentially been debt-free because once the service is cut off, there's no incentive for Russia to pay its bill there. Russia is also the largest holder of gold reserves in the world, plus backs its national currency with gold, and has begun to trade gold for commodities like oil on world markets, sometimes world gray markets, but definitely on world markets. Now, quite frankly, this breaks the U.S. petrodollar monopoly on purchasing oil. And if too many more countries, like, for example, Iran or China, or even, heaven forbid, Saudi Arabia, begin to accept gold in exchange for Russian oil, the American dollar will sink like a stone and Western banks will die. And then the Great Reset will truly begin. So, Wayne, are we doomed to living off the land again as our economy dies?
I've had to make a bit of a shift in how I'm seeing things these days. We've been very focused on trying to stop this Great Reset. Well, guys, where we're at here now, with exactly based on this particular discussion, I have to admit now that we cannot stop this. It is unstoppable. We have to look at how we're going to get through this to the other side differently, and we'll talk a lot more about that over the coming days. But this is why I'm going to talk about why this is unstoppable. I believe it was Tuesday, gold took the highest one-day spike in the history of gold. And I believe that has nothing to do with coincidence in the fact that Putin has got a giant 30% off sale on his oil if you're buying in gold or silver. And over the last couple of years, countries like Turkey and some of these other countries that were trying to get to a mineral backed currency, we saw what the US did to them. They pretty much went in and shock and awed them right out of oblivion, whether it was over made up weapons of mass destruction or terrorism against the population. They wiped them out and crushed these attempts at gold backed currency. Well, Putin was basically let off the hook for the debts to the IMF, and he has all the gold and he has all the oil. And if anybody wants to drive a car or heat their home over the next number of years, their chances are at least 50-50 that that oil is going to come from Russia. And if you don't have gold or silver, you ain't getting any. The American dollar, the Canadian dollar, the fiat currency, the monopoly money, it's over. It is not a reliable source of trade internationally anymore. So that will only apply to nations that still maintain agreement on that. So when countries like China and Iran and all of these other nations have to decide who they're going to do business with, Joe Sleepy Hong Kong Brandon or Mr. Putin, I think it's pretty self-evident on what we can expect these nations to do. So this unwitting behavior of our government to try to pretend that they can financially intimidate Russia into compliance with the New World Order is going to absolutely destroy our economy over here. Meanwhile, they have shut down most of our own sources here, decrying it all horrible, horrible, horrible. Oil, gas is the devil's work. So folks, this hyperinflation that we are seeing is only just beginning, and until something is done with that, it's not going to get a whole lot better. I think there's a stampede for tangible metals right now. I would get on that stampede really, really quickly. Might be the only thing that'll buy you some oil and gas 3 or 4 months down the road. But the investment in Canada is going to dry up almost immediately. That's been shown. There is no confidence in the Canadian economy. The people are making runs on the banks. That hasn't stopped. The globalists' agenda is clear. They want to destroy this economy. And if we don't adapt, improvise, and overcome alternatively, that's what's going to happen. So this is why I say I don't believe we can stop that now. The collapse of the financial system is upon us over the next coming weeks. It's going to really become more and more evident. But how we rebuild after, that's going to be what's going to be the next question. I don't think it's going to be under the Build Back Better banner. I don't think that's going to accommodate. There's far too many cycles of justice and reconciliation that we are going to have to travel through first. But we've got topics to talk for days.
I noticed Doreen Markham in the comment section states that Canada has no gold. Trudeau sold it all 6 years ago. I don't know about that, but you do.
She's actually correct. In 2017, Canada was down to 77 ounces. Trudeau had liquidated it all. This is what makes it such another big crime against Canadians, that they have sold off most of the gold mines that are currently established and running in Canada off to the Chinese, who now have their troops guarding said gold mines to make sure we don't try to take them back. But Canada has lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of gold, but it's underground, and he's given authority to somebody else for it. So that's the sad state of it.
This is one of those stories that I really hope you're wrong about, Wayne, but only time will tell. And frankly, the logic behind the assessment is pretty solid from where I'm sitting.
Well, I think over a period of time, it will prove me right. The CTV W5 says I am far right. I will say I am not far right. I am just right so far.
And that's all for tonight, except for maybe some quick announcements on projects you are working on, Wayne. Anything coming up over the next few days?
Not this coming Saturday, like not day after tomorrow, but on the 19th, guys. Check it out. We will do a lot of talking about this, but we're going to have a Grumpy Old Guys video hoedown where it's going to be beers and blowhards, and there will be somewhere between 300 and 400 years of life experience, uncensored, unfiltered, streamed live on Wimkin, Rumble, and Odyssey, because we would never get away with saying any of those things on the standard issue platforms. But yeah, look for that on the night of the 19th, guys. That'll be the first Grumpy Old Guys session, and we've got half a dozen of the most outspoken and diverse guests coming on. Chuck's going to be there to represent the intellectual class. I may be close to the youngest guy in the room, so this is going to be a show like people have not been able to see before. That'll be a lot of fun. And other than that, some more stuff coming up directly out of the Ukraine. We're going to have John back on. I do believe we're going to have Dr. Love from the Netherlands on perhaps this coming week. But yeah, some big shows. Stay tuned. You'll find all the really good stuff on Wimkin, Rumble, Odyssey, and whatsupcanada.org.
Except for the part about me being old, I agree entirely with what you said, Wayne.
And some big stuff coming for Ethics Over Fear too, guys. Yep, big stuff coming there too. Get plugged into that. If you have not seen the Covianism timeline page on the ethicsoverfear.com website, your guys' heads are going to go poof. All of the stuff that has been removed and deleted, exposing all of this, you'll find it in one place. You could download it, you can watch it, you can save it, you can get all of the stuff that they have been removing. That is how we are fighting back.
Agreed. Quick ending. Ed Jamasuk directed the program, and Angela Argentina compiled the intro and the extra pieces. Now, to produce this program, we depend upon you, our loyal viewership, to contribute funding as you see fit. For me, send the items via electronic transfers to mr.chuck.black@gmail.com. It'll help us effectively compete against legacy media's lies and billion-dollar budgets. Now, transcripts and show notes for this program are available for a $15.95 donation. Send your e-transfers to the same place, mr.chuck.black@gmail.com. And Wayne, where do they go to send you money?
Donate at whatsupcanada.org. We've been forced to take security into our own hands over the last little while and rerouting everything through secure servers in Switzerland. This is how we are able to be brave enough to stand up and say, sorry, Mr. Censorship Bill, we're working out of the Switzerland now, and we are going to speak uncensored and freely, but that comes at a price, guys. We know we deliver the news to you guys for free the best we can, but it's not free for us to make it. So anything that you guys can do to help us out is not just directly appreciated to the utmost, but it is absolutely necessary for us to keep going, and they are not making it any easier on us whatsoever.
Absolutely. One more thing, if you like what we do, remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the program, and pass it along to your friends. We need this. Good night, everyone. Ed, if you could run the end credits.
Would you mind explaining how you help them and what it is that you did for my colleagues and friends? Escape Chinata.